Hello tacticians, it's Nox here, and I finally unlocked Leviscus, which I'm very happy about. I've got the Emperor's Children all unlocked, and I'm working on them, as you can see. And of course, the Leagues of Votann are coming next. What this video is about is, well, there was a very cool reveal at the beginning of the year by Games Workshop about the Red Corsairs, and indeed the Aeldari Corsairs. And I want to have a quick look at them and let's have a think about if they are possibly coming to Tacticus. First up is Huron Blackheart, the Tyrant of Badab. Now, the reason why he looks the way he looks is, well, he was introduced to the working side of a melter gun, which, well, almost left him dead. But as is the case in many stories, he managed to live on thanks to his underlings, and one of them we'll see in a little bit. However, you may notice his little pet, I guess, next to his foot there. That is a demonic companion called Haemordryer, who accompanies Huron wherever he goes. And whenever Huron gets hurt, that little puppy gets more and more angry. And that would be very nice synergy to have on the battlefield within Tacticus, where he could be a summoned character alongside Huron when the battle starts, or maybe just part of his passive. He is then followed by Garreon the Corpsemaster, Lord Apothecary, and also a former Astral Claw, very much like Huron. And this guy is, of course, yet another Apothecary that we could have on the battlefield. This time for Chaos. Now, obviously, we've got Nauseous Rotbone, but another one certainly wouldn't hurt. For this character, I would say have an ability either next to a character that is killed, would trigger something of his, or maybe he has to step onto the hex where that unfortunate person has fallen, as you can see in this picture, where maybe he could empower his allies from the unfortunate victim he is now standing on. The third character I think we might have a bit of problem with. This is Katar Garrix, a cold-hearted headsman. Now, you might recognise him as we do have someone very similar to him in Tacticus already, and that is, of course, Tarvak. Now, obviously, just because they look similar doesn't mean they're going to be the same. Obviously, Tarvak is a World Eater, and okay, they've both got big axes, but it doesn't mean they have to do the same thing. But if there was one person that would be shelved out of Huron's retinue, it would be this guy. Garlon Souleater is next, another sorcerer. Now, you might say we've got enough of these in the Chaos faction because, of course, we've got a whole faction of them with the Thousand Suns. But, you know, let's be honest. When Games Workshop comes up with these models, they do one hell of a job, and this guy looks absolutely amazing. Now, unfortunately, we don't know much about this guy, so I don't think he's going to be a summoner, very much like many of the other Chaos Psykers, so maybe he's going to have to do something else instead. But what that is, I'll leave up to you, and by all means, leave your thoughts in the comments below. And then you have a human, Captain Sargotta, who's the finest shipmaster in the Red Corsairs and the chief architect of many of their naval victories. Now, I think it'd be quite interesting just to have a normal human in one of the Chaos factions. You don't always have to have Space Marines everywhere. Now, I see this character as possibly fulfilling a similar role to Thaddeus. Not very survivable, but the long-range bombardment being her thing. Maybe even giving her always having the higher ground because she's floating around on that dais of hers. Of course, I don't think her weapon, which you can see is a pistol tucked into that sash around her waist, is going to do much damage normally. And finally, possibly my favourite miniature out of the bunch is the Tyrellian bounty hunter known as the Enforcer. Now, this character also has, I guess you would say, a pet in that very dog-like Barghezi, whose ability to track down and hunt the cowards who fail her master Huron. And let's be honest, having a dog run across the battlefield to tear up your opponents in Tacticus would be absolutely amazing to see. and yet another reason why I really am hoping that these guys will come to the battlefield. However, of course, it doesn't stop there. You can't have all these characters without someone that they're leading, and that is the Red Corsair Raiders. These would be your rank and file troops who, well, will shoot and hit things, and maybe even have a little flamer with that one in front. So we've got a great choice of characters that can be chosen from. The big question is, will they? Well, let's have a quick look at the releases. Now, since Tacticus has come out, we've had an interesting way that they've been released. It's always been Xenos, Imperial, Chaos, Imperial, and so on, up until recently where we've had the Emperor's Children, and instead of being followed by another Imperial faction, they've now got a Xenos faction. What does this mean? Well, there's only one real Xenos faction left, and that's the Drukhari. And we have got all 4 flavours, as well as a Chaos Undivided, for a total of 5 Chaos factions. So what are they going to do after the next Imperial release, which would, in theory, come after the Votann? And this is why I'm thinking the Red Corsairs are going to slot in right here. Now, there is a possibility it won't be the Red Corsairs, it will be someone else, maybe the Iron Warriors, which I hinted at the end of the video that Games Workshop put out. But I think the Red Corsairs are probably the most likely out of the two. We've had a look at the Chaos, but they weren't the only ones that were released. We've also got some very new Aeldari. And those Aeldari start off with Prince Yriel holding his Spear of Twilight with that double back banner on him, which shows you that he really is a very important man indeed. However, whilst he does come from a standard craft world, in the lore he becomes an outcast and he vows never to set foot on Iyanden again, which was his craft world. And when he left, his followers, the Eldritch Raiders, left with him. And with that group of people, he's become the most feared Aeldari Corsair fleet in the sector. So you could see him leading his own start of the faction. And, of course, you wouldn't have your own faction without a seer to help you along the way. And this is the gifted Void Dreamer Kharseth the Aethyrmancer. And, I mean, there's a lot of words there. He obviously a psyker of some kind, and I've said it all along, Games Workshop make some amazing models, but as with Huron, they need people to lead, and that will be these, the Winged Skyreavers. Now, yes, they are a little bit Aethana-like, as they do have a very similar silhouette to the Swooping Hawks. However, there are enough differences there, very much like I mentioned earlier with the Executioner similar, to allow these to be their own troops. And if we are to get more Xenos, then I think these guys would be a great way to go. Now, I can already hear all the Kroot fans and Orc fans out there shouting that they need more, and you're absolutely right to say that. But personally, I like something new, and these fit the bill. But it doesn't stop there. These guys received their own machine of war, which is the Starfang. Now, I'm not quite sure how this works. It looks like they have to fly past someone to shoot them, if you ask me, because that big gun facing backwards. But this would certainly cut a very interesting silhouette in that bottom corner as a machine of war. But I would like to know your opinions. Would you like more factions added, or would you rather we go back and start filling out even more characters on the factions that we already have? Leave your messages in the comments below, and I'll be seeing you on the battlefield.